2021-2 and 2022-10. The first?
No,
No, 2021, whole year
Yes,
of 2021.
exactly.
And you will see the product of their work. So, Pierre, Olivia, and the rest you for the most part know, Dr. Alina from the School of Medicine.
Hi, nice to meet you, everyone. I'm Paula, and together with my team in ALivieEye, as Larry was mentioning, we were working on a medical device, which I'll talk a little bit about. So many of you, I'm sure, have spent a long day's work in front of your computers to find your eyes are red and itchy and sore. And we've noticed that that's a reality for many people around the world. And the main reason due to this is due to dry eye disease due to meibomian gland dysfunction. So at ALivieEye, we're changing the future of dry eye disease. So let me tell you a bit about the disease. Dry eye disease by meibomian gland dysfunction is caused by a blockage in meibomian glands. So some of you may not know these glands, but there's some glands that are located behind your eyelids, and they're in charge of secreting oils into your eyes to prevent your tear film from evaporating quickly. As I mentioned, sometimes these get blocked for many different reasons, and it causes dry eye disease. And it's estimated that around 22% of the population worldwide has this disease. That's approximately 1.8 billion people around the world. And what we found is that it's the leading reasons for eye health care services around the world. So we started to investigate a bit more about this disease, and we realized that this is a chronic disease and it's progressive. If it's left untreated, it could have many serious problems on your eyes. And even though you won't die from it, or you probably won't go blind, well, it's still very uncomfortable and it affects your everyday life. So we kept on investigating, and we realized that there wasn't any long-term accessible treatments. And most of the treatments that do exist, they aren't even covered by health insurance. So we wanted to change this a bit. And dry eye disease by meibomian gland dysfunction is rising at an increasingly alarming pace. It's increasing at a 9.2% of diagnosis per year. So how it's currently treated, 95% of the population is being treated with artificial tears and a mixture with heat therapy. However, these only mask the symptoms. They just treat the symptoms, but they aren't actually treating the cause. On the other hand, there are specialized devices, but these are very costly, and each session can cost around €700 or $700, and in markets such as Colombian markets, this isn't affordable. So that's why we created ALivieEye. With ALivieEye, we're reducing the dependence of artificial tears and providing long-term relief. To do so, we're improving our patients' visions, and we're treating the root cause and not just the symptoms. And we're doing this with a low-cost solution, which will be available with your doctors. If we compare with our competitors, what we're getting is we're combining the low cost and accessibility of the teardrops and the heat therapy, and we're combining it with the long-term relief that's provided by the long-term devices. And you may ask yourselves how we're actually going to get this to our patients, and it's quite simple. We're going to base ourselves on a B2B model. So we're actually targeting ophthalmologists. These are the people who are going to carry out the procedures. So we would be selling the actual device, which is this bottom half, directly to them, and then they would subscribe themselves to the delivery service of disposable sterilized parts. This will depend on the amount of patients that they treat per year and per month. They would then contact their patients as they would regularly, and in a consult, they would use our treatment around 4 times per year in a very easy, non-painful outpatient procedure. So let me remind you, around 22% of the worldwide population has this, and that's, if you look at the numbers, they're very big numbers. And ophthalmology is one of the fastest growing medical fields in Colombia and around the world. And our idea is to start here in Colombia because that's we have access to the markets, but we also want to grow around the world. And we know our solution will have a great impact in low and middle income countries. So we're going to start in Colombia, then we're going to start targeting Mexico, Ecuador, and Peru. And we want to target as many people as possible. So where we are at the moment, so we've already established our clinical need, and we've validated our idea with our market. We've got our invention of development, we've established our product design, and at the moment we're writing up the patent to send into the PCT. We also took part in an accelerated program with the STAR Fellowship. Here we learned a lot of the business part of ALivieEye. And what's to come is we need to establish a regulatory strategy. We have to get our sanctuary registration, and we have to carry out clinical testing. One of the benefits from this is that since it's not a very invasive medical device, this part will be a little bit easier. And what we want is to get all our go-to-market strategy ready. So as soon as we can actually go to the market, it'll be just a little bit easier, and we can get the sales going as fast as possible and help as many people. So this is our team. Our team is made up of 5 biomedical engineers, biologists, and designers, all working together to turn ALivieEye from an idea into an actual concept. And we're doing this with the help of our amazing advisory board, who are a group of ophthalmologists as well as health tech insight experts and other people in the startup world who are helping us to turn this into a reality. And at ALivieEye, we strive to create affordable treatments for eye diseases that will help people live more comfortably and increase their quality of life. And we urge you to help us make this into an actual reality with ALivieEye. Thank you very much. Absolutely.
Have you ever heard of Oculie?
No, I have not.
There's the Stanford biodesign team like a few years ago, and they worked on a similar, but they were looking at the lacrimal gland.
Yes, there's 2 different types. So that's the meibomian gland dysfunction and the lacrimal part. So we're focusing on meibomian gland, which is the main cause.
They were required for a lot of money, so.
Nice. I've been looking at
Promising,
it.
yeah.
Oh.
I know somebody who was on the team, so if you wanted to.
Oh, amazing. That would be amazing.
I guess one question without, I don't know what you're allowed to tell me, but how does it work?
Okay. Yeah, I can put it on the presentation as per se, that I can explain it to you. So the idea is to use mechanical pressure. So since these are glands, we want to eliminate the blockages. And the easiest way is just by squeezing it out, squeezing the blockages out. The problem is the way that they're being done at the moment, they usually use digital and electronic parts and components, which that's what makes this so much more expensive. What we developed is a design that does this same motion, however, it does it in a very simple and low cost way. You have to imagine it like a tube of toothpaste. So you know how sometimes you squeeze it in the middle, and if you squeeze it in the middle, half of the toothpaste stays inside and the other half just leaves. We want to use that mechanism, like the idea of that, to squeeze everything out from the bottom and push it out to ensure that we're eliminating as much of the blockages as possible. And that's what will allow the long-term relief.
Amazing work, fantastic presentation, great storytelling, just really good work. Could you go back to the slide with the table of the competitive
Absolutely.
devices?
Here or the one?
Yeah. So you
Okay.
have teardrops, heat devices, and your
ALivieEye.
device, other devices and your device. So
Yes.
you just described a method where somebody uses their finger, I guess, and pushes. So shouldn't that also be in the table someplace?
We had considered that one, and in a previous presentation, we didn't include it. However, we decided to not use it because it's not very standardized practice, even though it is a main practice that is carried out in many low-income countries. It's not as regulated, and our idea, and we don't see it as a competition because it's not standardized. However, thank you for, I think if you raising a question, I think we have to include it again in our presentation.
So isn't that like if you go to the doctor now, they don't have any devices or anything, isn't that the first thing they're going to try?
They are, and what makes us different is that we're standardizing and we're controlling the pressures to make it a little bit safer.
So my point is that that's 90% of your competition is that. So to leave the 90%
Yeah.
competition off the slide is a little bit
No, yeah.
missing. And that means that to make your product, I'm just giving
No,
suggestions, I
thank you. No,
apologize.
no.
But to make your product shine even brighter, you would have a 6th row that would say standardized.
Yeah.
And then you would show that method is used, because it helps to confirm and validate that there is an easy way to do this with your finger, except it's not standardized.
Yeah.
So your device is replicating this thing that has been done by ophthalmologists for 100 years. They all know how to do it, except it's not standardized, so there's very different results. And we're taking that thing that they can do already and making it standardized. I think that would make a very strong case for your product.
No, I'll take it into account. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
You know that Colombian medical system is moved mainly by how much is this gonna cost us?
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about medical practice.
Mhm.
In my poor experience in
Mhm.
medical practice, normally doctors say use teardrops or put wet sheets and warm wet sheets,
Mhm.
and that will alleviate the symptoms. So I'm thinking cost effective. How are you gonna sell it to the EPS where you say teardrops are just a couple of bucks and this is not a couple of bucks?
Exactly. We're comparing it, and if you sum up the cost of teardrops in a year, it ends up being more expensive than if you were to use our device. Because yes, our device seems expensive, but that device can be reused quite a few times.
You buy one,
You buy the lower part and this bottom part. Sorry. Okay. Yes, the bottom part. So it's divided into two. This bottom part and the top part. But this bottom part, that's the more expensive part. That can be reused for around a year. That's what we estimate. We haven't done the tests. This is the part that you would be buying per patient per treatment. However, it's 12 euros. Well, this is presentation. We were presenting it here, so we're still in euros. But if you were to compare it to the prices that exist nowadays in Colombia, a treatment of your eye drops would be more expensive than this.
So that would
And
be in the case that this is chronic,
Exactly.
that
So-
didn't work with the first,
Exactly.
dosage of teardrops and you have to use it for a whole year.
Exactly, but yeah, this treatment is also a one-off and it can last around from 2 to 6 months. So on the other hand, teardrops you would have to buy each month, or if you're unlucky, a bottle every 2 weeks. So it obviously will depend on the degree of dry eye disease.
Exactly.
But from what we've planned and what we've investigated, this is still a more inexpensive option.
Have you tried the prototype?
Well, we haven't carried out the actual clinical testing, the thorough clinical testing, but we have worked together with an ophthalmologist and we have carried it out and tested it. Obviously, it's still in the download because it's not very official, but it works and it's been interesting. And our ophthalmologist is quite keen on it. And we've also talked to other ophthalmologists in Colombia and they're also keen on it. So, yeah.
This kind of dry eye, it only happens in grown-up people or also with kids?
Well, nowadays it's changing a little bit, and it's changing because we're spending more time in front of our computers, and ophthalmologists are seeing that since we spend more time, we tend to not blink as much. So that ends up drying up our meibomian glands, and it ends up having a long-term effect. Even if you stop using computer, it is having a longer-term effect. While this disease used to be more for older people, it's changing and younger people are getting it more and more often. So everything's changing, and with the pandemic, it's increasing.
We out of time? One more quick one.
Sure.
So the cost per use of the device
Mhm.
is the cost that they have to pay for this disposable component. It's also the time. And it's also a part of a fraction of the training needed to learn how to use the product.
Mhm.
So how would you compare the cost per use of your product and the alternative would be train doctors to do that other procedure? What do they call the procedure when they do it with their finger? Right?
We called it digital.
Digital something.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's digital.
Yeah, it's digital, not the actual digital.
Yes, digitized. So I guess what I'm saying is that if I was looking at it from the point of view as an investor, I would say someone has to purchase and learn how to use your product. I don't know how hard it is to use. Is it really simple and easy, or is there some training required? If it requires some training, then someone may say, well, why don't you just train the doctors to do the digital thing correctly?
Exactly. No, it's actually quite simple. It's you insert it into the eyelid, and I can show you a quick picture.
So that's a great feature. So you
It
should,
is,
you didn't
it's
mention it in your
exactly,
presentation
yes.
about the ease of use.
Hold on. Yeah, it's really simple, and
the
that's
fact
also,
that, it was evolved to be used with one hand only, for example,
Exactly.
but when the requirements of the doctor, yeah, this has to be such that you can.
yes,
handle it.
you have to be able to use one hand because the other hand has to be able to move around the other devices. And so here it is, you can see. So you insert it between the eye and the eyelid, and then this part, the external part, is the part that actually pushes and squeezes it out.
Very clever.
Very clever, very clever, very clever, standardized, etc. So I would say it's a beautiful story, but you left out a couple of
Yeah.
the best parts of the story.
No, I'll include them in the next one. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, wonderful. Amazing.
Good. Yeah.
Please. So while he's going up,
Yeah.
we just heard a wonderful talk by, what was her name, from the regulatory person from Medtronic, Natasha. And she talked, and we had a discussion about whether it makes sense if you're, instead of starting with getting approval in Colombia, get approval in the EU or the US, and that way you'll have approval for everywhere, kind of almost.
We have thought about it, and obviously it's the easiest option is starting here. It's a lot easier for staying here. However, we have thought about going over to the US or to Europe. And the good thing about it is that since it is it's new and it's innovative, but it's still similar to different devices, we could back ourselves up on different studies that already exist, which would help.
What class of device is it?
It's a type 2A medical device, so it's not very invasive and it's
To a, so.
So if you did the
culturally,
US, then
it's
you're
like
check the
you're
box
done, yeah,
and Chile, you're done.
yeah,
exactly.
and Panama.
Yeah.
Huge. And Chile.
Yeah. What we need is
And she
investment.
did.
That's the
This
next
is
step.
good, this is good. See, if they were at Stanford, they would get $10 million check right now.
Oh,
That's-
no.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah, but it's okay, 'cause